Trump and his anti-environmental administration have been working overtime to roll back on the protections we have in place to minimize the damages we are doing to our planet. Since day one, Trump has shown a disdain for these safeguards that were put in place to protect our atmosphere, our water, wildlife, land, and our people. Throughout his campaign, Trump claims that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. When getting into office, Donald Trump chose Scott Pruitt to be the head of the EPA. This agency was put in place by Richard Nixon on December 2nd, 1970. Its whole purpose was protecting human health and enforcing the regulations put in place by the Congress to protect our environment. Republican Scott Pruitt was previously a lawyer, an Oklahoma senator, then after that he became Attorney General for Oklahoma. Scott Pruitt sued the EPA over a dozen times.
I think it's going to be a series of litigation that we're involved in. I have 6 lawsuits just in Georgia against the EPA, and I'm sure my fellow attorneys general have similar numbers of litigation.
They tried to stop rules, from mercury levels in the air to agricultural waste in water.
Different states were taking the lead on different pieces of litigation, and they're having these conference calls in which they were comparing notes on, okay, this file has been filed in this federal court, this appeal is coming up, who's going to take the lead on this?
Greg Abbott in Texas, kid Greg often that he has about 12 or 13 lawsuits against the EPA. We're trying to catch up here in Oklahoma.
Scott also denies that humans play a major role in climate change.
Pruitt also expressed his doubts about climate change.
Let me say to you, science tells us that the climate is changing, and then human activity in some manner impacts that change. The ability to measure with precision the degree and extent of that impact and what to do about it are subject to continuing debate and dialogue, and well, it should be.
In 2002, Scott has gotten over $300,000 in contributions from the fossil fuel industry, some being from ExxonMobil, Koch Industries, and Spectrum Energy. He received $40,000 in campaign donations from the poultry industry. Soon after that, he gave them a regulatory pass, basically looking the other way while letting them motherfuckers pollute. So putting someone like Scott Pruitt in charge of the EPA that fought against protecting the environment and having all these close ties to the oil and gas corporations is clearly a case of the fox guarding the henhouse.
Scott Pruitt being the head of the EPA is the same as New York's food inspector being a rat with a clipboard. You guys leaving your milk out? Good to see, good to see. I better not catch any of you washing your hands. I'm just busting balls. A+, now get back to work.
Putting someone like Scott Pruitt in charge of an agency that he clearly doesn't believe in, has a history of undermining it, and saying that it shouldn't exist, should definitely be criminal. So here are some of the things that Scott Pruitt has done to destroy the very agency he's supposed to be in charge of. During the first few months of heading the EPA, Scott spent most of his time meeting with people from the fossil fuel industry. He spent less than 1% of his time with environmentalists. He also stripped the EPA's website of information about greenhouse gas emissions on state and local levels and its effect that it has on various demographic groups. They erased information explaining what climate change is and how it works. They also scrapped information about Obama's Clean Power Plan to reduce power plant emissions.
Environmental Protection Agency has raised some eyebrows with the changes it has made under the Trump administration. Back in April, climate change information was wiped off the EPA website. Then last month, half of the scientists who used to provide scientific guidance on air and water quality were fired from the agency.
The Trump administration is taking steps to roll back an Obama-era policy that protects the nation's streams from pollution.
The federal court ruling that the head of the EPA overstepped his bounds when he tried to delay an Obama-era regulation about reporting methane leaks.
The agency also removed the climate change page for kids called A Student's Guide to Global Climate Change. Scott overruled and refused to ban a dangerous chemical made by Dow Chemical. It's a pesticide that can affect development of the brain and nervous system in young children.
Administration's top environmental official reversed the Environmental Protection Agency's push to ban a widely used pesticide made by Dow Chemical.
Thousands of pediatricians are calling for Pruitt's decision not to ban the Dow pesticide. are deeply alarming.
In October, Scott Pruitt announced his plan on withdrawing from Obama's Clean Power Plan rule. This rule requires states to meet carbon emission standards based on their individual energy consumption. It also included an incentive for states to get a head start on early installments of renewable energy. This plan was expected to prevent 3,500 premature deaths in the U.S. every year and prevent more than 1,000 heart attacks a year from air pollution-related illnesses. Scott Pruitt dismissed top scientists without notice. The reason being that a scientist who received research funding had a conflict of interest.
Here's your conspiracy. But no, they take these poor scientists at universities who get small amounts of money to do serious research, and they go, yeah, greedy scientists. Greedy, what are you going to make, like $40,000 this year? Greedy. Obviously, this industry-funded scientist who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's totally legit.
Honestly, if running the E.P.A. to those standards was really his goal, you would think he would resign, being that he has so many deep ties to the fossil fuel industry. But anyway, Trump announced in August that he would be pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. At the time, America, Syria, and Nicaragua were the only countries in the world that wasn't participating in the agreement. Nicaragua recently decided to sign on to the agreement though. They initially refused to sign up because its leaders stated that the other nations didn't go far enough in their efforts to combat climate change. On November 7th, Syria signed on to the agreement, leaving America the only country in the world not wanting to participate in it. The Paris Climate Agreement was created for all countries to work together to help combat human-caused climate change. Donald Trump also wants to cut the EPA's budget by 31% with the support of Scott Pruitt, of course. This would take away 3,200 of the agency's 15,000 jobs, cut $125 million from federal programs, in addition to $482 million in aid from the states to support their efforts. So the Republican Party is the only political party in the world to deny climate change is happening quicker than any other time in history. Instead of representing the best interest of human beings and our planet, they choose to take money from fossil fuel companies and pass laws letting them pollute so they can make short-term profits. They don't care about the shape that they will be leaving the planet in for their grandkids, family, and other people. The only thing that matters to them is making money. Forget human health, forget wild animals that roam free on this earth, forget the beautiful trees, plants that provide us with oxygen, forget about air, water, and the future of our species. As long as they could enjoy their wealth with the little time that they have left on this planet, who gives a fuck about anything else? This is Marlon. You have watched another episode of Lace Yourself Politics. Like, subscribe, and I would greatly appreciate it.